Friends, we want to continue our Dhamma talk on Bojjhanga. Today I want to focus on the second factor of enlightenment called Dhamma Vichaya Sambojjhanga. Dhamma Vichaya means investigation, searching, examining. That is the meaning of Vichaya. So, how can we do that? When we practice mindfulness factor of enlightenment, what did we do? Mindfulness factor of enlightenment. Now this is the time we have to review of our mindfulness factor of enlightenment. What did we do? In mindfulness practice, there are two aspects, sati, sampajanya. Sati is fully aware of what is happening. Sati. That means also memory. When we did mindfulness of fact of enlightenment, we paid attention to what is happening, to understand what is happening. And then, when we are doing that, we must now think whether we have clearly comprehended our awareness. That means, in the clear comprehension section, in mindfulness practice, that is called sati, establishment of sati, in the four foundations of sati, mindfulness. When we did clear comprehension, what did we do? We paid attention to first we pay attention to our mind. Always we pay attention to our mind to understand what is going on in the mind, not anything outside. Secondly, with that state of mind, once we understood what is going on in the mind, then we pay attention to our walking. Now let us see how we do that. When we pay attention to our mind, if any greed is arisen, we become fully aware of that. That is our mindfulness. This we recognize, this is greed. This greed is not something wholesome. Greed always has danger. Adinava. Greed has danger. What is the danger? It binds us to something. Remember, when we practice mindfulness of internal senses, sensory objects, and binding factor called sangyojana. What is the binding factor? Greed. Greed. If the object happens to be pleasant, definitely greed arises in our mind. And that greed binds us to the object mentally. That binding is not something physically. Binding is mentally. If the object happens to be pleasant, the mind likes to hold on to that pleasantness of the object. And we keep building up more and more thought, planning, possessing, and holding, and so forth. There arises, in addition to greed, jealousy, fear, tension, anxiety, worry of losing it, anxiety of holding it, protecting it, and so forth. So many other very unwholesome mental states arise at that time. What I have been doing, we are paying attention to the mind, and then we see what kind of mental state arises and what it does. We can see all these details. And then when we go forward in walking, before we pay attention to the movement, we pay attention to the mind to see whether the mind is focusing on the movement or the mind is daydreaming, thinking of various things of the past, bringing various past experiences through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind. Countless experiences we have had so far, and they can trigger and they can start, and then while we are moving, our feet are moving forward, but the mind is not on the movement. Mind is on daydreaming, planning, thinking, worrying and so on. And we have to see that. And then, as soon as we realize that they are dangerous, that this is what is called asada, sensual pleasure in the mind, we plan, we think and so forth, we carry on with this unwholesome, dangerous mental state. A desire always, especially desire arises due to our eyes, ears and so on, is not going to bring us peace. It disturbs us, and therefore we pay attention to that and understand what really is happening in the mind while walking. That is clear comprehension. In the clear comprehension section we mentioned, we clearly understand the purpose of meditation. Why we meditate? To overcome, to purify the mind, to overcome suffering, to overcome sorrow and lamentation, pain, grief and despair, to put ourselves on the right path directing, leading towards attaining liberation. That's called ekayana magga, one direction, one goal we have to keep in mind. That is attaining Nibbana. These are the 5 purposes of our meditation. When we clearly understand when we walk, if greed arises, we must ask, this greed is not going to bring me to that goal. This hatred does not help us to reach the goal. This confusion does not help me to reach the goal. Like that we look at it. That is investigation. Investigation. As you know, investigation, sometimes it is translated as discrimination, but investigation, I use investigation. When we investigate something, we must ask questions. Like, in very popular term, there are investigators, FBI, CIA, so they question. CID, CIA, FBI, and so forth. So they question to get the correct, direct answer. Similarly, we question our mind to get the answer. Is this going to help me to attain that state? We ask ourselves. And then, if the answer is no, then we immediately try to get rid of that, saying that this is impermanent, this is impermanent, this is impermanent, whatever is impermanent is unsatisfactory, whatever is unsatisfactory without self. Why? Simply I waste my time. I don't have to waste my time. And then we get rid of that particular mental state. And then pay attention to your movement, walking. That's called going forward, we become mindful. First become mindful of the mind and ask the question whether this particular mental state is helpful or dangerous. If it is dangerous, we let it go. And if it is beneficial, we cultivate. Like if the thought is thought of impermanence, thought of unsatisfactoriness, thought of selflessness, thought of metta, thought of compassion, and so on, we cultivate it. And then we may get tired of it and return to the walking. And then notice the walking is pure activity, pure clean activity. There is a desire in the mind that is called intention. The intention is such a powerful mental state, it immediately generates energy. It's called chitta kiriya vayu dhatu, energy. And this energy is discharged through our nervous system to activate muscles, and then we move, lifting, carrying foot forward, holding, stopping, and bringing it slowly down, putting on the floor, pressing against the floor. When it is settled, lifting the heel of the other foot, moving it forward and stopping, bringing down, placing on the floor, and then when it is settled down, lift the heel of the other foot, and so on. Now, that is the time we can see the pure activity called movement or walking. Whenever we have any other activity, eating, and for example, eating. We have to have clear comprehension to see that we eat just to maintain the body, not to increase our pain, overcome our pain of hunger, and not to increase any pain or arouse a new pain by overeating, and see whether we eat with greed or just to eat to maintain this body. And there again we are practicing both mindfulness, clear comprehension. When we ask this question, then we practice investigation factor of enlightenment. So investigation factor of enlightenment always goes along with the mindfulness and clear comprehension. Buddha said, Tandhammang pavichanati parivimangsheti. Tandhammang, that Tandhamma means mindfulness, vicharati, parivima, question. Vichara means question. So, and then review. Parivimansana means review. So we review, question and review the mental state when we are engaged in any activity. That is the mindfulness factor of investigation. And then when we want to practice it, we first look at the mind and see if that factor of enlightenment is not in the mind. If we are not engaged in investigation in this way, we know. That is, again, we are mindful of the non-existence of that particular mental state, non-existence. When it doesn't exist, we know it is not there. Then we make effort with mindfulness and clear comprehension to arouse this mental state, and then we know what was not there before, now it is there. This has been very clearly stated in Majjhima Nikaya Anupada Sutta. Venerable Sariputta practiced this so clearly, it is said, Ahutva sambhoti hutva pativeti. This particular mental state was not there before, now it is there. So he understands in this practice, this mindfulness factor of investigation was not there before, it was not there, now it is there. So he knows that it is there. And then what we do, we cultivate it. Santanga Dhammavicana Sabbojjhanga, Attime Dhammavicana Sabbojjhanga. When it is not there, we know Asantanga, when it is not there. And when unarisen investigation factor of enlightenment is arisen, we become aware of that, and then we cultivate it, develop it, multiply it, repeat it, proliferate it. This particular mental state, that is called Uppanna Dhammi Sambojjhangam Bhaveti Bahuli Karoti. This, whatever is arisen, we cultivate, develop, multiply, and make it perfect. So this is how we cultivate the second factor of enlightenment. That is mindfulness, what you call investigation factor of enlightenment. Therefore, investigation factor of enlightenment is absolutely necessary, because we are checking our own mind, reviewing the mental state, examining mental state, questioning the mental state. This is not something that we learn from books, learn from teachers, but we do it by ourselves, all alone. So this has only 4 steps. In the what you call other practices like senses and sensory object and fetters arising, there were 6 steps. Here we have only 4 steps. We first know the mindfulness fact of enlightenment, and then we know, is this mindfulness factor of enlightenment itself is comprised with clear comprehension. Mindfulness and clear comprehension. If it is not there, this is the time we have to develop it, both mindfulness and clear comprehension. When we cultivate clear comprehension, we see that our investigation factor is developing. If it is not there, we have to deliberately examine, question, and understand that it is not there, and then we arouse it. Once it is arisen there, then we know, now it is there. Now it is there. And then we repeat it. The way to cultivate is to repeat it. During that time, we repeat it. Maybe in one sitting, several sittings, maybe the whole day or night, whenever awake, we cultivate it in order to, these are the factors of enlightenment. It doesn't happen when we cultivate only once, develop only once, become aware of it only once, but it has to be repeated again and again and again, following the same procedure. Looking at the mind, if the mind is full of defilements, as I mentioned, greed and so forth, then we have to see the danger and then get rid of that particular unwholesome mental state, to get rid of danger. And then danger is that it is impermanent. That brings suffering. That brings tension, anxiety, worry, and so forth, all these mental negative states, negative mental states. When we get rid of them, then mind is calm, relaxed, and peaceful. So you can understand now mind is calm, relaxed, and peaceful. You are very, very deep into the investigation, and then you know how to repeat it again and again and again. This is how we practice the mindfulness factor of investigation. That is, when you don't have it, you understand that you don't have it. Secondly, you develop it and you know that it is there. Then you know that it was not there before. Now it is there. You know that asantang vajjatang dhammicha sabbhaga santime ajjatang dhammicha sabbhajang goti vajana. And then you develop this investigation of mindful, what you call, fact of enlightenment, repeating it again and again and again. And this is what the Buddha has done. You can see it the way he has done it in the Vitakka Santana Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. There are many, many discourses where Buddha himself practiced it before he attained Buddhahood. That is how he attained Buddhahood. It didn't come to him just sitting under the Bodhi tree and closing his eyes, paying attention to the breathing. But he practiced this in this way. From this experience, he taught us how to do it. And it is tested, experimented, examined, and did all the research, and then came to conclusion. With that conclusion, with 100% confidence, Buddha taught us this method. So let us continue this, and tomorrow you can ask me questions. If you have any, I'll be very happy to answer your questions. And again tomorrow we have this meditation first half an hour. Today we took a little longer. It's okay. You don't lose anything if meditation is a little longer than usual. Every second we meditate, we gain something. With these friends, I want to end this session this morning, and I want to do my very sincere metta wish for those who are in hospitals, suffering from various sicknesses, and taken care of by very compassionate doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs. May they recover very soon, return to normal health, and continue the Dhamma practice to liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. What we suffer now is extremely insignificant compared to the suffering we have had in samsara, or we may have in samsara. And all these doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs who are so compassionately taking care of these people, all sick people, animals, and so on, may they continue their wonderful, compassionate service for the benefit of the world, and live long in very good health and attain liberation. And all those who have lost their loved ones. Just recently, one of our directors on the 17th of this month passed away, and his wife and children's children, parents and so forth maybe are still grieving. May they understand Dhamma and be relieved from all grief and continue to practice Dhamma, and they themselves attain liberation, to stop this kind of grief caused by somebody's separation, loved ones. And others who are supporting various benevolent, wonderful projects for the benefit of all living beings, may they continue their generosity and practice Dhamma and understand the nature of this life and attain liberation from the suffering in this life and suffering from samsaric life. And all other beings whose category I have not mentioned, may all these beings be well, happy and peaceful and attain liberation from samsaric suffering. Thank you very much for coming and encouraging me to do this, and I see you tomorrow morning again.
Thank you,
And
Bhante.
I have my regular
Thank you,
Dhamma
Bhante.
children at
Sadhu,
3 o'clock.
sadhu, sadhu.
Some adults join, but if you have
Dhamma.
time, you may join
Yes.
also.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bhante. Thank you,
Thank you,
Sarma.
Bhante.
Thank
Sadhu,
Great.
sadhu,
you.
sadhu,
Thank
sadhu,
you.
Sadhu, sadhu,
Thank
sadhu.
you for your guidance.
Okay.
May Bhante be healthy
Thank you,
and
Bhante.
peaceful, Bhante.
Thank you,
Bye,
Bhante.
Momo.
Thank you,
Sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu,
Thank you, Bhante.
sadhu.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bhante.
Taking out the
Bhante,
Bhante.
good
Sadhu, 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 sadhu.
night.
Thank you, Bhante.